A Karen got mad at me for walking on her sidewalk during a snowstorm. So I started a psychological warfare campaign involving a mystery man named Bob. I've lived in the Midwest my entire life, so I'm well acquainted with the Midwest nice code. We wave at neighbors we hate. We apologize to inanimate objects when we bump into them, and we treat snow removal like a competitive Olympic sport. But this past winter, I encountered a Karen so delusional she actually broke my spirit. And then she triggered my petty revenge reflex, which, admittedly, is a bit overdeveloped. I'm sharing this because I didn't have my phone out to record the Karen in the wild footage, but the fallout was honestly better than any viral clip. The encounter. It was one of those classic January mornings where the world looks like a giant powdered donut. The plows had already been through, leaving those massive, salty slush walls at the end of every driveway. But the sidewalks were still covered in about 4 inches of pristine, fluffy white powder. I was out walking my 2 dogs. They loved the snow, and I was actually having a great time until I rounded the corner toward the local park. About 100 feet ahead, I saw her. She was a middle-aged woman in a neon parka, hunched over a shovel, clearing the sidewalk in front of her house. Now, as a civilized human, my plan was simple. Get closer, give the Midwest head nod, say, "Good morning," and either step into the deeper snow for a second to let her finish a swipe, or wait for her to pause. As I got within 10 feet, I gave the nod. "Hey there. Happy shoveling," I said, trying to be cheery. She didn't nod back. She didn't even pause. She planted her shovel like a battle axe and glared at me. That's very rude, you know. Walking on the sidewalk while I'm shoveling. I actually stopped walking. I looked around to see if she was talking to someone behind me. Nope, just me and the dogs. I looked down at her work. She had cleared maybe 20 feet of sidewalk, and she was acting like she was building the Great Wall of China by hand. I also noticed a very prominent, stubborn booger hanging from her nose. It was distracting. It was low-hanging fruit, pun absolutely intended, but I decided to stay classy for the first 30 seconds of the interaction. "I'm sorry," I asked. "People like you really exist? You're mad that I'm using the sidewalk?" "Yes," she snapped, her face turning a shade of red that clashed horribly with her neon jacket. "I walk my dogs too, but I have the common decency to walk on the easement or in the street when I see someone laboring over the walk. You're tracking snow onto the parts one just cleared." I looked at the easement she was referring to. It was a literal 2-foot-deep drift of frozen slush from the snowplows. Then I looked at the street, which was covered in a thick layer of jagged rock salt. "Ma'am," I said, my voice getting that edge you only get after a long winter. "The easement is waist-deep, and that salt will burn my dog's paws. Also, isn't the entire point of you shoveling this so that people can walk on it? It's public property. I'm not kicking snow onto your driveway. I'm just walking." Well, it's a complete lack of common sense to walk on it when there's still snow on the rest of it. And furthermore, I had heard enough. I wasn't going to let a sidewalk dictator ruin my morning. "Okay, Karen. Have a nice day, Karen," I shouted, deliberately walking right past her on the freshly shoveled cement. "Okay, B.O.B.," she screamed back at me. Now, my name isn't Bob. I don't know why she chose Bob. Maybe it was the first generic man name that popped into her head, or maybe she had an ex named Bob she was projecting onto. But that name, that was her fatal mistake. The escalation. I got home, and I was vibrating with petty energy. Usually, I let things go, but there was something so arrogant about her entitlement to a public walkway. Then it hit me. She had started this fight directly in front of her own house. She had no idea who I was or where I lived, but I knew exactly where she slept. The psychological warfare began that afternoon. I went online and found a local florist. I ordered a single, stunning red rose. I didn't send it to Karen. I sent it to her address with a simple, handwritten style card that read, "Thinking of you. Love, Bob." I knew the odds. If she was married or lived with a partner, a random "Love, Bob" rose appearing on the doorstep is a hand grenade. It's not enough to prove cheating, but it's just enough to cause a 3-hour argument about who Bob is and why he's sending flowers to the house. The compact strategy. A week later, we got another dusting, maybe 2 inches. I knew she'd be out there early, trying to maintain her pristine concrete kingdom. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. I took the dogs out, and we did the stomp. Instead of walking normally, I marched back and forth on her specific stretch of sidewalk, packing the snow down into a solid, icy sheet. If you've ever shoveled, you know that fluffy snow is easy, but compacted snow that's been stepped on is a nightmare that requires an ice chipper. I felt a little bad for the mailman, but the vision of her out there huffing and puffing over my footprints kept me warm. The glitter bomb. By the third week, I decided to go for the finishing move. I found her name and phone number through public property records. Thanks, Internet. I ordered a prank greeting card. For those who don't know, these are cards that, once opened, play a high-pitched, non-stop screaming sound or a repetitive song that won't stop until the battery dies, usually 3 to 5 hours. To make it better, this specific one was rigged with a spring-loaded glitter pouch. I addressed it to her by her real name this time. Inside, I wrote, "To Karen, with love from Bob. See you soon." I can only imagine the scene. She thinks it's another peace offering or a secret admirer note. She opens it in her living room. Bam! 5 ounces of industrial-grade silver glitter, the herpes of craft supplies, is now embedded in her carpet, her sofa, and her hair. And while she's trying to vacuum it up, the card is just sitting on the table, screaming at the top of its lungs. You can't tear them up to stop them, either. Most are reinforced. You have to submerge them in water or smash them with a hammer. The final act. I didn't stop there. I had her number, so I set up a basic autodialer script. Nothing crazy, I'm not a monster, but I had it spoof a few restricted calls to her landline and cell at 2:15 a.m. and 3:45 a.m. over the weekend. Just enough to wake her up, make her check her phone, and wonder if Bob was calling. The last time I walked by her house, she was out front again. She looked exhausted. She was staring suspiciously at every car that drove by, looking for Bob. I walked my dogs right past her. I didn't say a word. I just gave her the Midwest head nod and a wink. She didn't say a word back. She just looked at my dog's paws, then back at her sidewalk, and retreated inside. Was it petty? Absolutely. Was it a waste of $40 in flowers and prank cards? Maybe. But the peace of mind knowing that I turned her shoveling stress into a full-blown existential crisis about a man named Bob? Priceless. TLDR. Karen yelled at me for walking on a public sidewalk during a snowstorm. I spent the next month gaslighting her into thinking she had a secret stalker named Bob, glitter bombed her house, and ruined her sleep schedule.